Okay, so the light is bright. Looks like we're live. We are here for another week's worth of a video. Welcome to the channel, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Conscious Approach. Once again, my name is JV Wins, joined as usual by Dogon SS. And we got three hot topics that are all kind of related that we are going to talk about this week. So, pretty exciting stuff. However, before we get into this week's video, I do want to preface the commentary by saying that if you do like the content on this channel, please hit that subscribe button, like the video, also comment, because we do pay attention to comments. We respond to comments. We are in our own comment section. We don't just make the video and then disappear into the ether. We also participate in the aftermath of it, the comments, so long as they are comments of substance, not troll stuff. Troll stuff we will happily ignore, but comments of substance we do pay attention to. And I will say that by and large, not that we have the hugest following in the world at this point, but by and large, those who are a part of the tribe who do comment tend to comment with some sensible stuff. So we might get one troll here or there every now and again, and that might even be a robot. So who knows if that's even a real person. But always like to get things kicked off by making that disclaimer. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. We are on a race to 1,000 subscribers. That is our current goal. We would love to get to 1K. This has thus far been an organic experience.
Right.
No money has been put behind this channel as of yet, although that will in all likelihood change very soon. But thus far, it's been an organic experience. And, it's been nice to grow the tribe. Slowly but surely, we are getting there. But as you watch this video or as you come across any of this content, please feel free to hit that subscribe button because we certainly appreciate that. Now, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get into this week's commentary. First off, we are going to start with this video that I found courtesy of a YouTuber. Now, this chica's name is Aly Drummond. She's pretty big on YouTube. Her channel has 131,000 subs. There will be a link. Well, rather, she will be added, her channel, because YouTube has handles now. So we'll add her in the description of this video so that you can check out her channel if you're unfamiliar with it. But she is a female content creator who comments on modern dating relationships, but she does it from the traditional standpoint. So she's one of these content creators who preaches about the importance of things like traditional values and femininity and women playing the appropriate role. And if you want to be in a relationship, if you claim to be as such, probably a good idea to do some of these things. And so she, predictably rubs modern feminists and women, or people in general, not just women, but it could be men too, who subscribe to the modern feminist manifesto, which stipulates certain absurd notions such as men and women are the same and there shouldn't be roles in relationships and roles don't make sense and all of that stuff that doesn't wash at all and is completely wrong. But there's a lot of people who believe this stuff. So she kind of goes after this stuff and counters it every chance she gets. And she, pisses off the feminist contingent on a pretty regular basis. Now, this particular video from her wasn't on her channel per se. It was a video that she put out just kind of on her own, on a whim. There isn't a longer version on her TikTok or anywhere that I could find, but this was like a little 45-second clip where she essentially is talking about why men are seeking women not in Western culture. So they're going east to try and seek women. And she's, she's briefly explaining why men are preferring to not date westernized women. So I think that's pretty much the gist of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and get into this. We'll play what she had to say, and then obviously we will give our 2 cents on her opinion once we watch the video clip.
Hate to break it to you. I think that we've just got a very, very selfish culture of women. And to any women out there that say I have internalized misogyny or anything like that, that would require that I have a problem with women worldwide. I do not have a problem with women worldwide. I have a problem with Western women. And if you think that I'm just like making this up out of nowhere, reflect on the fact that there are Western men that are flying out east to find wives. Are Eastern men coming out west to find wives? No. Where in the world are men flying out in droves to marry American women? Nobody wants us. Why? We're big, we're selfish. We don't want to hear anything. You can't tell me to eat less. You can't tell me to change my life. You can't tell me it's not about me.
All right, so there you have it. Once again, her name is Aly Drummond. She is the proprietor of the YouTube channel Real Femme Sapien. Real Femme Sapien. The Real Femme Sapien. New videos daily. Good girls get the ring. Femininity, relationships, growth. So I don't know her credentials. I don't know whether she's actually educated as a relationship expert per se, but she has 131,000 subscribers. So there's something that she is doing. She's cultivated a following, and she pretty much puts content out like that several times a day, every day. So yeah, the gist of that particular clip was Western women are not desired as wife material, and men are flying out east to find wives, and nobody's flying out west to find wives. Do you have any initial takes on her comments?
I believe it's all factual. I'll say that. Uh, as far as Western society has a whole bunch of things that is um, against the grain for human sustainability, as far as keeping a society together. Everything that is done in the West is pretty much backwards. We're the only people over here that use this form of metrics in the metric system. We drive on a different side of the road than everybody else. Um, we write different. We go from left to right. Other places go from right to left. America is a place that is generally the opposite. It's opposite town. A lot of places overseas, um, the more traditional people, and I heard this a lot more when I was growing up. I don't know what's going on now since social media has gotten into play, but I used to hear a lot that Western countries, not Western countries, countries in the East, they despise Westernization going on. So, back when McDonald's was starting to make its way overseas and do all of this stuff, or be more popular overseas, or things of that nature, they just were not having it. And when I went to community college, I took sociology, and so I was taking classes about stuff like that, and I was hearing there. Those were the first times I was hearing about the disdain for the West. Me personally, growing up in it, I thought it was normal. Granted, I knew other places in the world was different, but I just thought that this form of commercialization was evolved. And it wasn't until, of course, I got older, started looking at things more critically, that, I didn't see anything wrong with those people's mindset on the East on people living here in the West. It is backwards. It is dangerous. And the effects of what was going on in the late 80s, 90s, and the 2000s has reared its head, and it's here. It's living amongst everybody right now, and it's a mess. And part of the mess, so there's many areas that's a mess. I mean, we can go down the list, all right? But this topic is dealing with westernized women. And so westernized women have also been corrupted with this commercialization and mind control level of human behavior that we're witnessing right now with women in the West. And so their expectations are grossly unrealistic. Their sense of entitlement is beyond comprehension. And this is standard issue. And it's only getting worse. So men here in the West who have seen this and noticed that their counterparts are literally out of their minds. Some guys are taking it upon themselves to go abroad to find themselves a spouse. Now, to each their own, right? I don't knock those guys for doing it. I've also heard that once they get their wives over there, they shouldn't bring them back because guess what's in the West? Western society and Western women.
Right.
So they're going to get corrupted. So I've heard those stories too. So there's really no win here unless you are dealing with a woman who's completely aware of these phenomena, and much like this woman here, right? And completely rejects and rebukes the level of mind control that they have been subjected to since they were children. So initial thoughts there, but how about you, sir? How do you feel about Western women?
Yeah, it's a pickle. When I was a bit younger, I was in a, I found myself in a situationship
Mhm.
with a woman. And it was, and mind you, a few videos ago, I talked about a woman. I forget what the topic was, but we talked about a video, and I personalized my comments by bringing up an experience that I had dealing with a woman who felt as though, because she was around and she had given me and she had graced me with her presence, that thereby meant that she was entitled to, things like me buying her gifts and whatnot. So this is the same. I'm about to talk about that same female again, but in this context. So, she and I, dated for a few months here and there. And while we were dating, something else that she used to do to me that was very weird was she was always trying to not necessarily force, but she was strongly trying to encourage that I strong arm upper management for promotions and raises, and that I storm into my boss's offices and tell them how much money I should be making, or that or otherwise I should threaten to leave the job. Mind you, she herself was an administrative assistant at a state government office job, earning under $20,000 a year. I want to say she was making like 19, maybe she was right at 20. She was making maybe $20,000 a year.
Ooh.
She was 24 years old. And, she was always putting this undue pressure on me to move up the ladder in my career as quickly as possible and at anyone's expense. And it wasn't because she was seeking to do that because she wanted me to better myself. She was putting this pressure on me to move up the ladder so that we could be a quote unquote power couple.
Oh no.
And so that and so that we could and so
No.
that we could so that we could be in the company of other people, people who I work with, who were doing things like, renting vacation homes and indulging in expensive leisurely hobbies like kayaking, canoeing, paddleboarding, things like this. She felt this intrinsic need to have that be a part of her reality. And the way that she saw herself getting there was by hitching her wagon to me and impressing upon me the importance of climbing the ladder, not because I had earned it through my work ethic, but because I needed to force the hand of my employer so that I can get into that stratosphere financially. And and my reluctance to do that, she couldn't understand why I wouldn't want to do that. To her, it was like, no, you need to be doing this. And, she kind of made it, she would introduce racial elements to it. She would talk about the race angle. I'm not going to get too knee deep into that. But her overall point was, that's what they're doing and they're successful. So you should be doing that too. And it was a daily conversation that I was having with her about this kind of stuff. Now, see, that to me is a Western mentality. And now, juxtapose that to other experiences with women that I've been with. Women who, like her, were raised in the West, but were raised on more traditional ideals. Several women who I dated in opposition to her, they came at me on some, how are we going to kind of rise above the ranks together as a team? So their sensibilities was, okay, you should try this in your career, and I'll try this in my career, and we'll sort of combine forces on some Wonder Twins activate stuff, and together collectively as a unit, we'll be able to better ourselves as a team. That was the rhetoric that was being fed to me by them, as opposed to the first girl who was just trying to hitch her wagon to my star and make me trample over everybody in my at my employment so that I can get gainful financial credibility. She cared nothing about my title, my promotion, what I did. She didn't care about anything. All she cared about was what my net pay was. That's all her concern was what my net pay was, so that my net pay could be commensurate with her ideal of the type of life that she should be living at the time. And the other girls were all about teamwork. Now, again, why do I bring these juxtapositions up? The first girl was deeply stoked in Western ideology. She spent all day long on, at the time, Instagram and Facebook and all of this stuff. She had this idea in her head of the kind of life that she should be living. And because she liked me from a compatibility standpoint enough, she felt as though her staying around was contingent upon me getting into that upper tier financially so that I could help to essentially fund her lifestyle. And then there were other girls who I dealt with who didn't really do that. They were more so on teamwork stuff. And if you looked at the history of those girls who were more on teamwork, they tended to all come from two-parent households. They didn't spend a ton of time on the internet and social media. They lived lives outside of the virtual reality multiverse that is social media. And they pretty much approached everything from a balanced standpoint of, this is the contribution that I am making towards this operation. So I kind of feel like the point that, Aly Drummond is hitting on is the absence of those sensibilities. And it's more so about, and we've talked about this before, relationships being more of a business transaction. And they're completely transactional, and they're matters of how I can get my reality, the dreams of my reality, the dreams of what I want my reality to be, to become real based upon the imagery that I see on my devices and my phone, and what man can I hitch my wagon to in order to make that happen. And if you can't make that happen for me, then you will be, laid waste at the expense of what it is that I want. Because in this life, it's all about what I want, and I don't really care about contribution or teamwork. And I kind of feel like that's what she was speaking towards. Some of these things, like, you can't tell me nothing, or, we're big, and that's why these, guys don't want us and they're going out east. All of this stuff is correlated. I won't necessarily argue causation, but I will argue correlation. And I do think that there is a correlation between the type of woman who has the right sensibilities and some of those tangible things that men seek in women when it comes to marriage prospects that are most desirable. Things like not being overweight, things like being healthy, things like having the proper mindset, and not feeling as though because you have to play a particular role that it is somehow minimizing your humanity or your individuality. And a lot of people, but women in particular, who subscribe to westernized ideology do believe those things, and they've been fed a bag of lies. They've been fed that playing a role must therefore inherently mean that I am devoid of my individuality. And I'll be damned if I let you, a man, the patriarchy, strip me of my individuality. When really no one's trying to do that. All guys are trying to do is get with somebody who they can get along with and build with. And no one's really thinking about all of that stuff. These preoccupations with some of these narratives and themes come from ancillary sources that don't necessarily factor into what makes for what would otherwise be called successful relationships. So that's kind of my initial take. That's what I felt like she was getting at. But I also feel like we are who we are. So the women who get it don't need to hear this, and the women who don't get it don't care. So it boils down to who's going to be receptive to this type of messaging, and that I don't necessarily have the answer to.
Well, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there at the end as far as who's listening to this type of message. So I would say that there's women who aspire to be traditional. And so for them to constantly hear like somebody that has the same mindset as them, I think that's key and essential. The women that are just here to tear her down because they think she's been brainwashed by the patriarchy. So I mean, there's those people, and they're like a brick wall. You're not going to be able to get through on that at all. And just as a man, you can get a lot of stuff squared away in one conversation with a woman. And if you have the right kind of, and it don't even have to be deep questions. It can just be very surface level. You can gauge by the question she asks you, much like how you were talking about, like this girl's telling you to knock down doors and put your job and your life on the line for her approval. But she's asking you to do these things because she knows how much you make. She asks how much you make. Well, you can make more than that. Isn't there a higher position? We'll get more money, And so you can pretty much gauge what a woman's intent is by the line of questions she asks you. And you can pretty much tell if she's been indoctrinated or not. And the concept of love, I'm not saying that I'm throwing that out of the window, but if you're dealing with a Western woman, you're gonna have to throw that romanticized concept in the trash. All right. Because when you're dealing with them, you're dealing with capitalists, and you're dealing with women who are seeking to capitalize on your lifestyle. A lot of things that attract women to a man is his confidence, right? They always talk about confidence. And another thing is lifestyle. And they want to live a part of that lifestyle that the guy has already built for himself. That's why when you ask them, what are you bringing to the table? And they don't have an answer. Well, my job is to look pretty until I catch the guy who actually been doing everything. So I caught you, so I want to live your life. Wrong. Right. But then, like these housewives down here, I'm sitting there scrutinizing it with whatever woman of the day I was talking to. And I'm like, what is this crap? And, these girls here, they ain't about nothing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, this one got a business doing this, or this one got her money doing that. And it's like, well, who funded these operations? Where did they get this from? Did they get it all off the muscle? Are they using, husband's money? Like, what is all of this stuff coming from? And so, the thing is, man, guys aspire to go, let's use sports, for instance. Men aspire to go to the NBA or NFL. So go to the league. A westernized modern woman, her going to the league is her bagging that 6-figure plus guy, bagging that millionaire man. That's her going to the league. That's her getting her ticket out. And so if you're not a guy that's, in that boat and in that ballpark, they're going to pretty much look at you like you're useless, you're dead weight. They'll deal with you. And, but all the while keeping their eyes down the road for future prospects because they're looking to cash out somehow and go to the league. So with the modern Western philosophy of thinking with these women, yeah, man, it's dangerous stuff. It's sad, but this is the reality for a lot of men right now. So instead of being spiteful, vindictive, weird, it's just best to know what they're doing and prepare yourself for those types of women whenever you encounter, because you will encounter them. And if you're a person that has any type of self-value, discipline, and you're moving forward through life and you're knocking down your own doors at your own pace, women are going to take notice of that. And then they're going to try to hitch themselves along for the ride, the Western ones. Right? And they're going to try to hitch themselves along for the ride so they can live part of the lifestyle. That's why they always need to go on dates. Even though you guys are more than dating, they still want to be taken out on dates. They still want to be going on trips and doing all this extra stuff because modern entertainment told them that this is what women do with their time. And instead of being in the house cooking, they rather eat somebody else's food that's not better for you. That's crap. You can make better food at the house, I'm sure, if they even know how to cook. Right. So these are a lot of the things that are dealing and plaguing the women in the West. So, like I said earlier, going to another country, I'm not taking it that far. I think it's just best to know who your opponent is because they are playing against you. So it's just best to know who your opponent is and handle yourself accordingly whenever you are dealing with a woman who's trying to push her boundaries over on you. It's just best to stand firm, create your own boundaries, and never break them, man. But yeah.
Yeah, that is true. I think yeah, I would concur that I don't think you're going to see this mass exodus of men in the West going overseas specifically for the purposes of looking to find a wife. I think that there is a sizably growing population of guys who are doing that, but in mass, I don't think that that's what's happening. Nor do I see that becoming something that's just more of a regular occurrence where you're just seeing this huge swath of guys going to an entirely different hemisphere just to find women to marry. For the most part, I still think everybody's trying to, you know, get it how they live in their own homeland. And, in that respect, the only thing that I can really offer, because look, I'd love to be able to sit up here and say that there is a magical cure-all type of application that you can apply as a guy so that you can sidestep all this and be able to easily come into contact with the right kind of women with the right kind of value sets. I do not have that solution. I don't have that cure-all. I can't give you that kind of reassurance. But what I can say is a lot of what this boils down to as a man is, if you want to try and best position yourself to sidestep a lot of this stuff, you have to strategically place yourself in environments where the type of women you're going to meet in those environments give you a greater likelihood of success. And so, a couple pods ago, I brought up where are you meeting these women? Because if you are attempting to meet women in social gatherings, places like clubs, bars, lounges, concerts, NBA All-Star Weekend, Super Bowl week, stuff like this, hip hop shows, music festivals. If this is where you're trying to meet women, you're going to run into westernized ideology more often than not. And I think the point that I brought up was you have to map this stuff out. It's almost like you have to get a whiteboard and write on your whiteboard, okay, I'm going to join, like you got to start joining professional networking organizations. You got to start volunteering, do volunteer work. I even mentioned, at one point, I think one of the things that I mentioned was like part-time work. Now, again, the economy is rapidly changing. And so laboring and service industry work, when you factor in things like the economy and all that, a lot of that stuff is kind of changing right now, but you can still walk into any kind of establishment so long as your ego can take it and apply for part-time work somewhere in the service industry, preferably places where you're dealing with people who are working and they're there a lot and they're spending a lot of hours at this job. It doesn't have to be your primary source of income, and it doesn't have to be something that you're relying on. You're literally utilizing these outlets for the express purposes of trying to put yourself in position to meet the right type of females. And you're not going to have to make any compromises. Like I think a lot of guys nowadays are saying, man, how do I sidestep this westernized epidemic? Because really it's an epidemic. Like, how do I sidestep this? Because what I'm looking at here is I'm going to have to make compromises. If I want a girl with the right type of values, I'm going to have to compromise on her being a single mom, or I'm going to have to compromise on her looks. Maybe I have to get with a chick who might be a bit overweight or a bit less healthy, because maybe she'll have the right values. Guys are trying to figure out whether they can still find what they want to find without having to make such compromises. And the best thing that I can say is put yourself in the right types of environments to meet the girl, to give yourself the best chance to meet the types of women that you want to meet. Networking organizations, volunteering, part-time jobs, if you're into the church, doing the church thing, all this kind of stuff is stuff that you have to consider, because otherwise, if you're just out here and you are exposing yourself to the whims of modern social environments, you might find yourself struggling more often than not. You can throw dating apps in there because those are a crock of shit. Um, even places like even places like grocery stores and gyms. I bring this up a lot. One of the most profound things that Kevin Samuel said coming out of the pandemic was how gyms had become the new meat market, and essentially people treat gyms like clubs. And this was something that was birthed from the pandemic, where because you couldn't go to clubs, you couldn't go to bars, you couldn't go to lounges anymore. People, one of the first places outside of places like grocery stores and retail places, one of the first social types of places that opened up where it was a large amount of people in one concentrated area coming out of the pandemic was gyms. So people who were about to work, who were about that workout life, and even people who previously didn't go to gyms, but now they started going to gyms because that was one of the few outlets that were available to them at the time to socialize. So Kevin Samuels observed, and rightfully so, in my opinion, that gyms have become the new meat market, where now gyms aren't even safe anymore. And now, women are politicking at the gym for quote high value men, and dudes are going into the gym, marking territories and fighting over the women in the gym. So you couldn't even really go to the gym anymore to try to meet women because of how the environment in those places had changed so much. So you got to start seeking, the affirmation, the attention, the close contact of women in more socially neutral environments where westernized ideology isn't running so rampant. If you're working in a part-time establishment, whether you're working in a restaurant, if you work at a hotel, at a resort somewhere, places like this, you're going to be working around a heavy concentration of both physically attractive women and women who have the right values, because everybody needs to work and earn a living. And in those types of environments, is there still a likelihood that you can run into this Western stuff? Yes. But is there also a higher likelihood that women can just sort of see you for who you are and understand the values that you bring to the table, and they might be more likely to be on that teamwork and right values within a relationship context stuff? Yeah, there's a greater chance of that. So, you got to just kind of strategize where you're trying to fish. What ponds are you trying to fish in? And you just got to give yourself the best chance to not run into the types of women that she was describing in that brief video, because it's running rampant. And if you're out here trying to get your rocks off in conventional social places, you're going to run into this more often than not. So I think now more than ever, it's appropriate for guys to understand the importance of strategy. And it might sound a little weird, like, why do I have to strategize when it comes to trying to meet women? Well, in 2022, moving into 2023, you do. I hate to break it to you for anyone who's uncomfortable with that notion, but strategy is going to have to play a big time role in this. And whatever works for you, figure that part out. But you're going to have to map that out, get some Post-it notes, some whiteboards, volunteer here, join this club there, get into this organization here, extracurricular activities. Go to wine downs, paint sips, go to museums, all of that kind of stuff. Art, you're going to have to expand your palette in some kind of way to give yourself the best chance to succeed, is my point. Because if you narrow yourself into the westernized bucket of the club scene, the party scene, the bar scene, the lounge scene, all of those other things that I mentioned, music festivals, hell, even sporting events, things like that, gyms, hell, grocery stores, places where you have to kind of strike lightning in a bottle. You're going to find yourself encountering this more often than not, unfortunately.
No, well said, bro. Couldn't agree more. And I'll just say this. When dealing with this whole Western ideology thing, and I talk about this damn near every week, but when I talk about how people have been systematically programmed since they were children. And so when you decide to actually speak to this person, like I said earlier, it's really important to whatever answers that they give you, you have to judge that harshly. And there is no room for oh, well, maybe she'll change. I'm telling you,
Mm-mm.
whatever she's telling you in those first initial conversations, that's how she feels, period. And over time, you may become boring. You may become you know, you may not be making enough. You
Yeah,
know, well, I mean,
lame,
like,
insecure,
you know,
all of the buzzwords.
yeah, and so there might be some stuff that's going to make her disgruntled within the relationship. You don't have a problem with her. She has a problem with the lifestyle she's living. So now she's finding you know, the needle in the haystack in order to break you guys up. So that's why whenever you're doing your interview process, you have to weigh real heavy on these things that are westernized. And if they're speaking this mumbo jumbo rhetoric, it will rear its head at some point. So, as I said earlier, there has to be whoever you're talking to, they have to see this for themselves. They have to have the same lens as you and can point out the modernness of what's going on in dating and then call it out as much as you can call it out and articulate it as much as you are articulating. And they understand and appreciate gender roles. And if they're not having those levels of conversation, it's either run for the hills or take it for a joyride and return the rental.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
And
absolutely.
but yeah, this is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And I'm telling you, bro, I'm judging books by its cover. You know, I'm reading the summary in the back, and I don't have to open the book. I know exactly how this book goes. There's no need for me to crack this open, you know, to go through all of these ups and downs and cliffhangers if I knew what was going to happen before it happened. So treat them appropriately, everybody. The
Yeah,
Western Wild West.
I couldn't agree more. What's the expression? When a person shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And they're not going to change, man. And I know they sexy and they look good and all of this kind of stuff. And so just the allure of them, it's an overpowering force. I get it. Trust me. I've been there. You know, all men have been there. I get it. But when they when they show you who they are, it like when that girl was talking to me about this stuff, none of those things changed. It didn't matter how sensibly I tried to explain to her how much of a detrimental mindset that was. She was 100% convinced that she was correct in how she felt about this stuff, you know? And so, yeah, take it for a joyride as I did and return the rental because they're not going to switch it up. They're not going to change. When a person shows you who they are, you have to believe them. Truly, you do. And especially when it comes to this relationship stuff, because it's far too tenuous for you to invest any of your time and energy into something when there are clear and outright signs that this is not something that you want to get yourself involved in, you know? And I don't think that there's any coincidence that the chick who was on that crazy stuff telling me to go constantly and get promotions and get more money while she was doing none of that, by the way. I don't think there's any coincidence that I met her on a dating app.
Oh, there you go.
And the girls who are not on that, I met them at work or at school or something like this. Now, granted, not everybody's in school, but there's socially neutral places that you can put yourself in to give you a good enough chance to run into women who do not idolize this type of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
They for the streets.
Yeah, facts. And so appreciate the content. Aly Drummond, y'all go check out her channel on YouTube. 131,000 subscribers. She puts out good stuff. Unless you get offended by the stuff that she puts out, of course, you know. But it is what it is. Appreciate her for that content. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic. So this video provides us with a pretty good juxtaposition from the first topic that we went in on.
Lord have mercy.
So This here, I would categorize this chick as a Western woman. She definitely, correct me if I'm wrong or if you believe, think anything different, but I would put her into the westernized bucket. I would definitely put her into the westernized bucket. So this woman here is explaining why she only deals with men who can fund her lifestyle, I guess is the right way to preface, before we share this. So we'll just go ahead and play it. I wanted to talk about the Aly Drummond clip first before we got into this, because I think that it provides a good juxtaposition between what is Western ideology and what might not necessarily be Western ideology. So we'll go ahead and play this and then we'll react to it afterwards.
This is why I feel you need to fuck with men that are going to do something for you on a monetary level. Make your life easier, pay for nails, gifts, etc. Today I was having a tough day. Wasn't feeling that good. I looked down at my wrist. Okay. A man bought me this watch. I looked down at it and I was like, oh, like this is shiny and there's diamonds on it. And I deserve diamonds. And it made me feel better. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like my watch. The same gentleman bought me a designer handbag. Every time I wear that bag, I love it. I get compliments on that bag. You understand? That does not equate to a man telling you on a rough day. No, that sucks that you're having a rough day. What the fuck does that do for me? Especially coming out of a man's mouth. Because everything that comes out of a man's mouth is utter fucking trash and garbage and it doesn't mean anything. Do something for me. Okay? Make my life easier. And if you can't do that, I ain't got shit for you.
That face that she was making right there at the end completely encapsulates what's going on in her brain. This woman is out of her mind. I'm just getting right into it. The thing with, is she Western or not? Is she modern or not? What is this? She's referring to the watch. So when she wakes up, the watch makes her feel better that her life is shardy. So then what she has to do is she has to get money out of more men instead of getting it herself, so she can have more nice things around her for when she wakes up in the morning, she can feel better again, because every time she goes to sleep at night, she feels like crap. So why do you go to sleep feeling like crap and waking up in the morning all the time feeling like crap? Can we get to that? Can we address that?
It's a very good question.
Yeah, is it correlated to the lifestyle you may be living? Possibly. So in order for this narcissist to continue to function, she needs more supply. And this woman's supply, outside of attention, I'm sure, because I can't even see what her real skin complexion looks like, at least as far as her face is concerned, because there's so much foundation and foolishness going on with it. But she's sitting here living a life as a lie, completely narcissistic, completely absorbing men of everything that they have. So she loves attention and she loves money, apparently. And so with this type of modern thinking, what does she bring to the table? Now, this woman may argue she is the table. Mm-hmm. I would also argue that she has the mindset of a table. All right. I would also argue that she brings as much to the table as a table would bring to a table. Okay. So she doesn't have much going for her outside of her looks, apparently. All right. But yeah, this is absolute madness. One thing, and I'll touch on this and I'll let you go. What has happened? So when I took psychology courses, and this was in my junior year in college, I was learning about concepts that I had no idea about. I went all the way up until that point in my life doing some of the stuff that's in the DSM. Everybody in the class was feeling the same way. So they asked the professor, say, hey, I do a little bit of this. And then she was telling everybody, okay, all right, calm down, calm down. Everybody's on the spectrum of these things. Okay, fair. But it's when it becomes clinical, when it starts to eat away at your life, eat away at other people's lives, blasey splees. So if you do have certain things that you do here and you are on a spectrum, hey, correct those. You don't have to go that way. And while I was taking that class and others, I said, why don't they teach psychology in middle school and high school? Like, I needed to know this stuff when I was developing.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school for that. There's people who have zero concepts. Now, they may know of psychological terms like sociopath, narcissistic, and all these other things. They may know of these terms, but they don't understand how psychology works, coping and various strategies to use to get through life. So when you have these people who have never had adequate mental development, you get these adults who act like children. And so this woman here, completely irrational, completely emotionally imbalanced. It don't take long, fellas. You can figure this out in less than a minute. And this woman here told us everything that we needed to know about her mentality. So I'll weigh in more about the overall psychosis that's going on in America, but this is a good little microcosm of what's going on across the entire population, I would argue. But how do you feel about this, bro?
This is the type of woman who you make sign an NDA before you smash. So, you know, Drake, we talked about Drake last week. Drake is infamous for his NDAs because of his trysts that he has with women. This is the type of chick that Drake sleeps with, which is why I kind of feel like, and you know, this is somewhat off topic, but kind of also on topic at the same time. I do not believe that Drake is actually in search of a wife, because in order for you to be as smart as you are, but still indulge or spend your time with women of this ilk, and you know what you're dealing with, hence why you make them sign documents like NDAs, speaks to my indication that you're not really about that relationship / marriage life, even though you often talk about how you struggle with the duality of it because you want to do it, but you don't necessarily live the type of lifestyle that can provide it for you. No, you do. You just choose not to because you really don't want it. Yeah, that's the type of chick that you make sign an NDA. You know, just like, okay, so yes, this is the female version of people who grew up devoid of the ability to understand concepts related to mental processes. But just like there are women such as this who grew up without learning those skills, because they are skills. You don't just come out of the womb with it. You have to actually cultivate these things and understand them and actually learn them and use them. There's men on the other side who grew up with the same absence of those cognitive skills. And those are the men who afford women like this with the, in her mind, right to think this way. Because I've mentioned the idea of progeniting behavior often on this channel. And this rings true to me now with this particular topic. As chemically and emotionally imbalanced as she in all likelihood is, as in need of a therapist as she in all likelihood is, she nevertheless can operate throughout life believing that she is in the right, because there are men who are willing to affirm these assertions for her. And that to me is the greatest tragedy in all of this. See, it doesn't matter how much people such as you or me, or even Aly Drummond, for example, it doesn't matter how often we can say, yo, chica, you going about this the wrong way. There's always going to be a beta male, a simp, a man who is devoid of his own cognitive wherewithal to understand the right types of mental processes, who's going to swoop in and buy her whatever she wants so that he can buy her presents for however long the rental lasts. There's always going to be men who are willing to do this. And as long as there are men who are willing to do this, there's always going to be women who think like this, who go out and they operate this way, looking to be resource extractors from men. And you cannot convince them that they are not correct in the way that they're going about living life, because they will always have some sponsor somewhere who's willing to fund it. So as much as I'd like to look at, people like her and say, this is westernized ideology, this is where we're all going wrong, ironically, she in her mind probably feel as though she's wifey material. She probably feels as though she should be married. She thinks that she would make a good wife for a husband. She thinks that she's worthy of having a ring put on her finger. And she can literally make a video like that, but then once she hits the red stop button on her phone, she'll go on to somebody's podcast talking about how she would make a great wife and a great girlfriend and be a great life partner. But you think and act this way. Where is that coming from? I think you hit the nail on the head, that it comes from a lack of knowing based upon, and this opens up a can of worms about the educational system and all of that kind of stuff, if we really wanted to go down the rabbit hole that far, that deeply. But this is just not understanding mental processes and coping mechanisms, and how ideologies such as this factor into all of that. So because she lives a slowish, thoughtish, imbalanced lifestyle, purses and watches and handbags and I don't know, first class flights and cars, those are her coping mechanisms. Those are the things that she receives in return for her thoughtish lifestyle that make her reconcile some of the damaging and destructive decisions that she continues to make throughout her life. But again, the greatest tragedy in all of this is not that she lives the lifestyle in and of itself, but it's that there are men who give her the ability to live the lifestyle, who afford her with that ability. So, at this point, if you've watched previous videos on this channel and you've heard me speak on this, I'll say it again, even though I'm starting to sound like a broken record. This is not going to stop until these dudes everywhere stop tricking, which they won't. Stop being sugar daddies, which they won't. Stop rewarding these women's self-destructive nature and behavior by buying them things, which they won't. Stop creating an environment in which relationships between men and women are all about business transactions and materialistic possessions, which they won't. But until they do, we'll continue to get this stuff. And so I just kind of find myself once again talking to the men out there saying, y'all need to stop this, because this is the monster that you're creating. This is the epidemic that you're causing. But, these words fall on deaf ears because, these dudes out here, they're weak, they're effeminate, they're emotionally weak, they're imbalanced mentally, and they use their money and their possessions in order to fill their own gaping holes, and to provide them with their own source of coping mechanisms for things that they otherwise lack, that make human beings whole humans, such as adequate social skills and reasonable coping habits like talking things out and discussions, and putting things all on the table so that everyone knows where they're coming from on either side. As long as men understand the importance of these things, you'll have crazy women like this saying crazy stuff like this, and they'll continue to be rewarded for it by these weak beta dudes buying their time, buying their vaginas, buying their presence. Women like this are so far gone, she probably gets more sexual satisfaction from getting a new handbag than actually having sex. She probably receives more actual stimulation from getting a new watch or having somebody buy her a car than from an actual genuine connection with a human being. She receives more sexual satisfaction from getting a new car than actually having sex. And there's women like this all over the place, and they're being funded by men who don't have a clue. And so until these dudes get a clue, this will continue to be an issue.
Yeah, well said. I'll say this. I said this before in the previous one, and is that women are a reflection of the universe. All right. Yeah, I'm about to go there with this. All right. And when you're dealing with women are asking men to do what men are supposed to be doing. Men are supposed to be doing it. Now, the figures and making all this money, I'll get to all of that. But the things that they ask for in a man, all right, is everything that a man is more or less capable of doing outside of height. All right. Most of it, a man can just go ahead and get those things done. Now, when we're dealing with why I say that they're a reflection or a manifestation, kind of like a human form of the universe. If you're doing what you need to do on your path, you get women. You get a lot of them. And what's wrong with that? So some of these women, they'll ask you, oh, you got to have this, you got to do that, you got to be confident, you got to make this kind of money, don't you want that kind of money, bro? Don't you want to have more self-confidence than you already have right now? Don't you want to be in shape if you're not in shape? There's a lot of things that they're asking for that's not really off the wall crazy.
Correct.
So if you actually do what the universe is telling you to do as a man, then at that point, you'll have more women than you can handle. And so there's two sides to this. There's the side of them being unrealistic because the inception that most of these women have gotten is that they still wouldn't be satisfied. So even if you did all of this stuff, they'll just find the guy who makes more, or they'll just, divorce you or get weird, who knows? They got bored. It's all kinds of crap, right? But the point I'm making is that being on your path is what you were ordained to do when you got here. So when you came here on earth, you had a life mission. And who knows what that mission is but yourself. And you know where you want to go in your life. And you have to be unapologetic about that goal. Unfortunately, okay, a wife that we were sold a romanticized version of is not necessarily a part of your personal mission. Now, hear me out. So once you go on your personal mission, nothing is more important than your own personal mission. That's forever your child, your baby, what have you. A woman, and most guys, if not all guys know this, once that baby pops out of that woman, all right, she now loves that baby more than she loves you. She loves that baby more than she loves the marriage. It's her and that baby. And then you're like third. You were number one on the list. Now you're like third. You're never going to receive the love that you personally got from your mom if you had a loving mom. So trying to find that in another woman, you're already taking a wrong step. So what can you love and what can love you as much as your mama loved you? Only you can love you as hard as your mama loves you. And loving your goals and your passions will love, and those will love you back. Putting your energy into those spaces, you will have greater self-respect, greater boundaries. All right. Women like this, you can weed them out. All right. So the goal here, fellas, is to stay on task and to go towards your goals. All right. Indiscriminately. And don't let any woman gaslight you to get you off your task, to get you off your goals, or what have you. The money comes abundantly. All right. The women come abundantly. All right. Then at that point, you'll have, the pick of the litter, so to speak. And you can actually choose the woman through a much richer pool than, happenstance. So to tie it into them being a reflection of the universe, they're verbally articulating what the universe wants you to do as a man. Be healthy, be in shape. All right. Get on your job. All right. Elevate, create your own empires. Okay. These are things that as men, we need to work on doing. And we have also been conditioned in the West here through commercialization and other forms of foolishness that took us off of being our own bosses and emperors and creators of our own world. Instead, we swipe badges, all right, do these forms of manual physical labor. If you're not a physical labor man, you're sitting in some cubicle. And if you're not sitting in some cubicle, you're working from home. But it's all under somebody else's umbrella, vision, and goal. So there has to be a level of separating yourself from the chain gang, because that's what you're in, and building something for yourself. And so, and by doing that, you'll have a fulfillment that you'll never get from any of these thoughts. Excuse my French. All right. But yeah, so let this woman have at it. And those simps who made it, who are westernized conditioned, all right, because that's another angle of masculinity being targeted, because there's just more simps being bred every day. And westernized, westernized media pushing men to be more soy based, be more feminine, have less masculine standards, have no frame at all, just shaming men into being women with penises.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With all of this madness going on, this is where guys are on OnlyFans just tricking off, all kinds of money. This is where guys are buying this woman here, so basic and lame, a watch. And I'm pretty sure it's an expensive one. All right. She's laying up in some hotel room, right, that she probably just finished working in. So my whole thing here, fellas, is get on your job, get on your task, fulfill things within yourself, trying to find that love, air quote, in a woman. All right. I'm not saying you can't love nobody else. What I'm saying is that love that you're looking for, and I think you know what I'm talking about. That's the kind of love that you have to put into your own passion and goals. And life will reward you back for that. So long spill there, but had to mention that at some point in this conversation, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad. It's sad. More guys do need to heed that kind of stuff. It's crazy. But it's just, I've talked often about the trickle down effect. And so what's dangerous, so women like this, these are the women who are going to, they're going to the clubs or the parties when they know that the rappers or the NBA players are going to be in the club that night. And their goal is to try and get one of those guys.
Yep.
But when they make their videos, they're disseminating that foolishness to women who live in regular world. And so women in regular world are now emulating this behavior. They're copying the ideology because they believe that is, they believe that that's the normal way to operate things, which is, that is westernized mentality on a whole. It's the spreading of that type of thought process to every aspect of, life, on every socioeconomic level, even if it's on a level socioeconomically to which it does not pertain. And you got guys who are in regular world to whom this would not apply, but they're nevertheless being victimized by it because they're just being forced into a situation in which they have to either comply or go their own way. And most guys, because they don't know any better, are choosing to comply. And so it's perpetuating, the problem is perpetuating upon itself, because you got guys who are in regular world who are saying, this is what I need to do. Buy her purses, watches, bags, whatever I got to do in order to play the game. And so what we're, I think, trying to suggest is that you don't necessarily have to play the game, but also understand the importance of being on your purpose. But you do have to know how to spot these things when you encounter them. This is not a game that you have to play. It's a game that I don't recommend that you play. And, the way that I kind of talked about, in the previous topic that we went over, there's ways to get what you want and not be victimized by this dynamic necessarily. And, to your point, being on your job is definitely one of those ways to sidestep it, in addition to being able to understand the importance of strategically putting yourself in the right types of environments.
Yeah.
Because trust and believe, chicks like this are in the wrong environments.
Yeah.
And so if you're in those wrong environments, this is what you're going to run up on.
Well, these type of fish don't swim in fresh water. All right, they're only in the saltiest of bays and saltiest of seas. All right, known as clubs and bars. All right, and dating apps. All right, so I ain't mean to interrupt, but you're right, man. Take your rod, okay, and head to some fresh water, sir.
Yeah.
All right, and stop catching these women. All right, that's been exposed to all of this salt and all of these harmful plastics and chemicals in these seas. All right, but my bad, bro. Keep going, man. But yeah, good.
No. That's it. That's a good way to end it. And yeah, just don't take your talents to South Beach. Just don't take your talents to South Beach. I know it's easier. Like it might sound easier said than done, but it really isn't. It really isn't, man. One strategic decision can change your fortunes entirely when it comes to this stuff. And you'd be amazed how quickly your fortunes can change. But yeah, you get out of those salty waters. I mean, doing that stuff when you have something is cool, or at least having the right expectations when you go to places like that. I'm not trying to say stay, because, I might go to a club or a bar or a lounge from time to time, but my expectations are what they are. Right. So as long as you have the right expectations and you know that your identity as a man extends far beyond the reaches of the confines of this place, you'll be fine. But if you're just living for the weekend and you're not building your empire or doing whatever it is that you should be doing outside of, however you earn your paycheck or whatever you do to earn a living, and you're living for the weekend and you're living to inhabit these places that are polluted, you're going to get the results that you're going to get. So just don't be surprised when she tells you that she doesn't really care what you say or do. She just wants you to buy that watch. Do for her, because otherwise she just doesn't care about you. So
yeah, she ain't gonna do nothing for you either. But sit
well,
there and look at you crazy.
Exactly. And she's not going to do anything that any other vagina can't do. I'll put it that way. So
well said. Well said.
Okay. So now we're going to get into Lil Yachty and some comments that he made about how he don't like smashing no more. It's interesting. I feel like all of this stuff is kind of interrelated in some kind of way. But before we get into the commentary on this video, I do want to point out that, guys, we are in a race to 1,000 subscribers. Okay, if you see that ticker going across the bottom of the screen, this is a race to 1K. Thus far, the building of this community has been an organic experience, and we are very thankful and appreciative for that experience thus far as we continue to build. So if you like the logical content on this channel, and if you like to support logical content and you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that button so that you can get the notification whenever new content is published to this channel. Also hit that like button and comment on this video, comment on all of our videos, because we do pay attention to comments, trolls notwithstanding. So just want to kind of put that out there. We're in a race to 1K, y'all. So, do us a solid and help us out, because we certainly like to make these videos, and we do this each and every week, and it's about to increase. So just be on the lookout for that stuff. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and talk about Lil Yachty. So Lil Yachty is, I call Lil Yachty a new rapper. I'm not really in the new. I know who he is because I follow the music, but I don't listen to any of his music. He's just a part of that new school, new generation of new rapper I just can't get down with. But he's a popular guy, and he has a huge following, and he's in this hip hop space and he's doing his thing out there. But what caught my attention with him is he recently made comments talking about how, sex basically just doesn't even really get his juices going anymore. He talked about how he just doesn't really have any thrills. There's nothing that he gets value-wise from doing the deed. He's kind of moved past it, almost as though it's almost as if he's evolved past the surface level act of having sex. So we thought that this was interesting. Again, I think that it plays into the previous topics that we talked about. I think that it's all correlated. Again, I'm not necessarily going to argue causation, but I will argue correlation. So we'll listen to this short snippet of what Lil Yachty had to say about his lack of interest in sex, and then we'll provide our comments afterwards.
Because a lot of times I don't have sex. And I think women probably think I'm gay. I don't care that much. It's like, I think a lot of times women think if they find out to you like that, we have to have sex. Or like that's on my mom.
Right.
And sometimes I just like to see what someone is like. Or even if I can be around it, because I usually can't.
I think that's such an interesting concept because I think women, they think that. And then if a dude is not trying to like get in their pants 24/7, they're like, what's wrong with me? He's not into me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, like maybe he's just not trying to be doing that 24/7.
I've just had so much sex that like it's diluted to me.
I understand that as well.
Yeah, like it's just it's not what it used to be. Like I get off more on just really laughing. Like cause laughing is so good to laugh, and it's a real laugh, and it's like, yeah, we're laughing together.
Yeah, that describes a lot of stuff. That little clip right there.
Yes, excuse the ad play on the end of that. Free source, man, so we won't get hit with no copyright. But yeah, so yeah, he got into he said it's diluted. He said sex is diluted. He's just done it so much. It's not what it used to be. It's diluted. He'll fly chicks out just to talk and laugh, apparently. So
have fun.
Yeah. So I mean, do you have any initial thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, I get it. I totally get it, especially when you're just having transactional sex. I'm pretty sure that's what he's been doing since he got on. Is having not and transactional, not in the sense that he's paying for it, literally, although he's done that too. But what I'm getting at is they want to have sex with somebody famous, and he wants to have sex with somebody he thinks looks good. And that's the transaction. We don't care about each other. We don't care about anything. Let's just exchange this. And so that gets old very fast. All right. This guy hasn't been a rock star for long. All right. He's been in the limelight for 6 years or so. And he's already done with it. All right. Now, granted, that's a lot of women he's had access to in those years, but still, it's a thing where when you live a whorish lifestyle, whether male or female, it gets old doing these exercises for no reason, especially when you see that the person left with a part of you, because that's kind of how you feel. You feel used. You feel like, what did I just do? What was this about? It's kind of the same feeling and the shame that one gets from masturbating. And it's like, what did I just do to myself? Eventually, at first there's a high, there's a rush, much like masturbation. And then eventually over time, you just go, hey, man, what is this? What did I just do? And yeah, once those girls and that revolving door keeps going in and out, you actually want to laugh and carry on conversations, but they don't care about laughing or having conversations. They just want their energy exchange. Yeah, man, it sucks. So he's speaking from a place of an area where I've talked about before, where nobody who lives a whorish lifestyle, whether male or female, are not satisfied with living like that. At the end of the day, humans like compassion, and they're a communal group where they like to exchange healthy forms of energy, reciprocity. But when there's one party stealing from the next, because that's all that's going on in those type of transactional relationships, then there's a hollow feeling inside from both parties. The video with the last girl, she wanted a watch to help put a Band-Aid on that void. All right. But once you look at the gash, all right, no band-aid's going to cure that. So what Yachty's speaking about here is that, hey, look, man, I didn't like how I felt after all of that stuff. If you want to be around me, then be around me to be around me, not just here for, oh yeah, I'm in the green room with Lil Yachty, and yeah, bro, it gets old. So I have more to say, but how about you, sir? Do you agree with Sir Yachty, or is he slipping?
No, I don't know whether it's a matter of whether I agree or disagree with him, but I do understand, not necessarily understand because I can't personally relate to that. I'm not tired of sex. But I also don't live his kind of lifestyle either. And I get it because you're right. Like when you do certain things mechanically, there's a certain burnout factor that is associated with that. It isn't just with sex or relationships. It can be anything that you do mechanically that doesn't bring you intrinsic fulfillment. There's a lifeline on that. Eventually, the fuse is going to expire, and you're going to experience burnout. This is why people quit jobs as often as they do. No one likes being a cook. Like maybe somebody does, but by and large, when you go to work at, let's say you go to be a short order cook at Chili's or Applebee's, there's no passion in that. You're not receiving any intrinsic value from doing that, from performing that work. You're literally doing it mechanically so that you can earn a paycheck. A paycheck, mind you, that is in no way commensurate with the physical output that you give in order to receive it. And so because you're lacking in passion and intrinsic fulfillment from performing this task, there's a certain burnout factor. After about 6 months, 7 months, a year, however long it takes based upon your relative level of tolerance, you're eventually going to experience burnout and you're going to quit because you can't take it anymore. And so if he is expressing genuine feelings, then it seems as though he's reached his burnout factor when it comes to sex, because I would imagine in his particular reality, being a popular hip hop star, like you alluded to with your initial comments, even something as enjoyable and as fulfilling and pleasurable as sex can become something that is literally mechanical. And if you're doing something mechanically, you're going to experience burnout at some point. So, I'll take him at his word. And if I'm taking him at his word, it's not necessarily a matter of me agreeing or disagreeing. I just understand that burnout can happen in any area of life when you commit to something mechanically. It's why women become so apathetic when it comes to meeting men, because they've gotten to a point where they give their number out mechanically. They give their social media out mechanically. They don't even care. Like, it's not even a matter of whether they even like the guy or not. It's not even a matter of whether they are interested in the guy or not. Literally what women do nowadays is when they go out, they anticipate mechanically just giving their number out. They're not factoring or evaluating how much interest do I have in this guy? Do I want to go out with him? Do I want to communicate with him? If he calls me, would I pick the phone up? Do I actually want to text back and forth with him? They're not taking any of these things into account. They're literally committing to these behaviors mechanically, because that's just the reality that they have come up in. It's to just do this mechanically. And so because they do these things mechanically, they experience burnout and they become apathetic. They become indifferent. Now, when they go out, they might have the attitude. Maybe they'll save face and they'll give you some kind of feedback that's not necessarily totally negative, but they're still doing this mechanically and they don't care because they've done it so many times that they're burnt out from the experience. And so there's no intrinsic fulfillment that they're getting from doing it. They don't even care about it anymore. And so Yachty's just experiencing that burnout. But my bigger point overall is this. You ladies out there, we talked about westernized culture. I hope women are taking heed to comments like this. because you eventually reap what you sow. And I hope you understand that guys like Lil Yachty are going to become more abundant as time progresses. There's going to be more and more men out here who just don't care about having sex with you anymore. And you need to ask yourself whether you're okay with that future. You need to ask yourself whether you're okay with that kind of reality, because this is the type of thing that yields some of the approaches to relationships that you've, acquiesced to. So think about it. Like, and this might be a big picture, galaxy brain type notion. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Yeah,
But the way I the way I see it is, we've talked about the disparity between sexually active men and sexually active women. Because women are essentially only making themselves available to a small percentage of men based upon certain parameters, such as income and height, for example. There's a huge swath of guys who aren't actively having sex with women because they're being disqualified from having a chance to do so. And they're being disqualified not from their own doing, but because women are disqualifying them, because they're really only making themselves exclusively available to 10 to 15, at the most 30% of the total population of men, based upon that specific set of parameters. So it stands to reason that if 100% of the women are having sex with at the most 30% of the men, you have 30% of the men who are having all the sex who are going to experience sexual burnout. And they're going to experience sexual burnout because there isn't an even distribution of sex to be had. Like, there isn't an even distribution of sex taking place. There's no math on that makes sense. There's no math on 100% to 30. There's no math on 100% of women to 30% of women. Maybe there's maybe there's math on 1-to-1. There's math on 100% to 100%. There's better math. There's not as good, but still decent math on 100% to 90 or 80, or hell, even 70, 75%. But there's no math on 100% to 30%. So we've calculated this before. We've kind of traced this back to the statistical source. If I'm a guy who's in a room with 10 women and all 10 of those women are going to choose from me, I'm going to opt to have sex with all 10 of those women. And I'm not going to choose to be with just one of those 10 women because all 10 of those women want me. So the math just doesn't add up. And it stands to reason that if I have the opportunity to be sexually active with all of the women because I fit the parameters that they're seeking, then after a while, I'm going to start having sex mechanically. And if as a man I'm having sex mechanically, at a certain point, I'm going to experience burnout. And you're going to be dealing with a guy who does not want to have sex with you, not because he doesn't find you attractive, but because sex, as he puts it, literally doesn't do the same thing for him as it used to. It wouldn't do the same thing for me that it used to if I'm doing it that often mechanically, and with it being devoid of intrinsic fulfillment. So, ladies, y'all do what you do, right? So y'all,
they're gonna do it anyway.
yeah, y'all gonna do what y'all do. So do what you do. Only go out with a guy who's this tall, who makes this kind of money, who can afford you this kind of lifestyle. But understand the consequences that can become. Understand the consequences potentially that can be had from that. There's going to be a lot more guys out here who are just, because at this point, I've talked about the involuntarily celibate dudes out here, which is a large percentage of population of men nowadays, unfortunately. Lil Yachty is voluntarily celibate. He just doesn't care about it anymore. And ladies like to get their rocks off just as much as men, if not more so. Women, receive a substantial amount of pleasure, fulfillment, satisfaction, however you want to characterize it, from sexual contact. And so imagine a world where there is a whole bunch of men who just don't want to do it anymore, and ask yourself whether you want to live in that world. And then ask yourself how some of the decisions that play into how you go about choosing men factor into that world becoming a possibility, because I think that it very well could become a possibility.
Well, to speak on the 30% of guys smashing, the rest of the women's, and that's where we get the phenomenon of OnlyFans and tricking and stuff like that, because guys try to buy their way into it.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're lacking characteristics, from what I would argue is from a bombardment of programming towards men. So they're not doing men things. So therefore, they're casting themselves out of the smash list. So instead, money's easy to make. Changing your character is hard. So those 70% dudes are not going to change their character. They'll just pay their way out of it. So this is where you get guys doing this high level of simpery from, and it seems to be coming from all angles. Well, because it is. 70% is a large amount of people, large amount of guys that aren't having sex on a regular. So once a woman chooses you as that guy, all right, there's all kinds of words floating on the internet for that. But as soon as a woman chooses you as that guy, in her mind, she feels as though this guy gets vagina on a regular basis. There's something about this guy where I'm attracted to, blasey splees. And what makes that a thing is what I was speaking about in the previous conversation, where there's been work going on. Now, a lot of the guys that get it too, that's in that 30%, are the air quote bad boys that we've also covered. All right. I want to argue there's a large percentage of bad boys in that 30% as well. And
I think the majority of the 30% are guys who pay their way out of it. And I lump quote unquote bad boys into that, because I think quote unquote bad boys, they're bad boys in the sense that they're trying to fit a particular mold from a character standpoint. But those guys, for the most part, pay their way out of it too.
Well, I would say this about bad boys. So the reason why they're attracted to the bad boys is because they're displaying masculinity. They're displaying it. And they don't have they're not complete though, which makes them bad. But they display these domineering, rough around the edges kind of thing that women want in a guy. But they're bad because, well, they're crappy kind of people at the end of the day. And so those guys, hey man, there were bad boys in elementary school, and those guys was getting all the girls. They was getting them all. The kids that was fighting, getting suspended, he was getting all the attention from all the females. I couldn't understand it. Me with my good grades. So that's why in middle school and high school, I deviated from the guy who did all of the stuff that was, right. And I started breaking rules on purpose, not too crazy, rules that I feel like I can break. And I would break those to get a edge about myself. Now, did it get me more attention? Yeah, somewhat. But bad boy is a lot deeper than external acts. It comes from a place of, hey man, a lot of it is they weren't raised right. They just have emotional issues, right? And so they just go about life the wrong way, kind of. All right. But I say that to say that if you so happen to be the percentage of guys who get sex enough on a regular basis, then it's a thing where you kind of have to just be grateful. I know it sounds weird, but be grateful that you're part of that, because there's something in you. And to tie into the previous, there's something in that if women see that in you, then you're doing something right. Now, you're doing it all the way right, maybe not, but you're doing something right when it comes to being a man. But the guys that grew up with this heavy, dense conditioning of video games, of apps, the Vines and Instagrams and, ways of socializing without leaving the house, I would argue that the reason why this number is growing over the year over year is not so much the women's fault. They hold their own form of accountability for this, but the guys who aren't being men. And if you take a man from 1685, all right, that's a random year, all right, 1685, and you bring his chiseled jaw, high testosterone ass around things, all right, you compare him to, somebody who's obese, okay, all the Call of Duty games. I hope I ain't naming nobody in here. And then all the Call of Duty games, yeah, constantly gaming.
Come on now.
Yeah, Mountain Dew, okay. Pasty hands from touching themselves too much.
Yeah,
all right?
OnlyFans subscriptions,
okay. And you take that high T man from 1685. He's crushing this guy. He'll say Yoweth Theeth. You can't even say shit. You give him a Tinder profile. It was like, who is this guy with this chiseled jaw? Yeah, this guy's getting all the action. Now, why is that? It's that men nowadays have been conditioned. They have been conditioned. And I'm going to put a little bit of hat on. Sorry, bro. Got to put my tinfoil hat on. But when we're dealing with population control, one of the angles, this is a perfect storm for it. If you want to talk about males having lower drop sperm counts, when you want to deal with marriage and stuff like that in the crapper, there's all kinds of things that point towards, educated people having less children. People are having less children in general now. Guys aren't having sex anymore. So when you're dealing with all of these things, you have to really ask yourself, when you're plugging in these video games, or you're giving your son a video game, or you're allowing them to play, it's, when am I going to draw some of this in? When am I going to cut some of this off? Well, some of his friends were online, so I'm not going to cut him off from that. Well, the longer he sits on that device, the less T he's developing. All right. So you're gonna have a child with low testosterone, no drive or build to go talk to the opposite sex. Bro, you remember, bro, we had the cake on the phone. We had to call people's houses, and sometimes the dad would pick up. And I'm sitting here talking to girls and, on the phone. You had to have game. And you had to actually speak. Now with DMs, all this impersonal stuff that's going on, people aren't developing the proper communication skills either. Granted, I can have a pen pal all the way in Shanghai right now. Okay. I couldn't did that when there was dial up or there was no internet at all. So yeah, great for us. We can communicate further than we could before, but people aren't communicating hand to hand. Their hand to hand communication is lacking. Growing up in rooms and you're only talking to people on headsets, you can talk as much crap as you want on there, but as soon as you go on streets, you're as quiet as a mouse. What kind of psychology is being developed from all of these generations of having so much access to nothingness? And now we're seeing it with all these new statistics coming out of guys having lower sex. The percentage of men that are only having sex, is getting smaller. And so these are all the manifestations of it coming to a boil. And that's why I said, so if there is a thing where it's just like, damn, that's wild. It is wild out there. But, I consider myself somebody that's like, hey, I'm on the healthy side of the equation. So it's just like, all right, well, cool. That's cool for me. But I'm still dealing with the unrealistic expectations and blah, please. So that's why I also mentioned just having your passion be your orientation. Serve up your questionnaires, because if you are genuinely looking for an authentic connection, then you can have somebody you can laugh with, like Yachty was talking about. He just wants to have a good laugh, basically saying, I want somebody to love me for me and not my status. Sorry, sir. That's not going to happen if you're only acquiring them, from entering your green rooms, DMing you, and blah, please. So, of course, there's going to be this transactional, no love type of situation. And that'll, I don't know if that'll make me, not want to have sex anymore. But I think what he's getting at, because he wants to have sex, and he does have sex, but he doesn't have sex anymore because it's boring, because it's not fulfilling. So, so if you're a chosen select few that's actually out here slaying it, he's like, I don't know where they're getting these numbers from, because I'm still getting mine. Well, sir, you're part of the 30. So pat yourself on the back. All right. But since you're one of those people, I don't think there's a burnout from the lack of love, from the lack of compassion. And if they're treating you as a transactional piece, so because I don't know what percentage you think of women out there are air quote modern, but I would argue is over 80. And because if there was a room of 100 women, will you get 20 women that have traditional values? I think I'd be hard pressed for that.
It depends on the kind of room.
Well, it depends on, where you fishing at. So, but still, nevertheless, man, I still think the percentages are low for more traditional women versus modern. And put yourself in that 20% and then start weeding out from there. So, yeah, man, it's all types of factors that play into this. But yeah, Yachty, hey man, with his colored nails and stuff like that. I like how he tried to parlay, and I'm going off the cuff here, but I like how he liked the parlay that people thinks that he's gay because he don't want to have sex. But it's just like, bro, with the colored hair, all right, the beads, the painted fingernails.
That's just 2022 weirdo stuff.
Well, that's what I'm getting at is but what he's also promoting is low T, dude. And he's also promoting this soy-based lamery that I was speaking about. And he's a proponent of it. He's one of the founders of this.
I mean, most of these jit rappers are. He's a dime a dozen.
Well,
you can throw, so you can throw Uzi Vert and all those other guys in that category. They're all the same.
These effeminate males. And so who's listening to these guys? That's 70%.
Yeah.
And so this guy is a reflection of, So, he probably has I was giving him credit for one thing, but who knows what, what's going on with this guy.
Yeah, but the difference is Yachty, a person in Yachty's position isn't going to be penalized for poor social skills or low T. Like it doesn't matter whether he, from a character standpoint, is lumped in with the population of these new human males who aren't, up to snuff, because, socioeconomically, he still is able to provide. He's basically a cheat code, is what I'm trying to say. So he's like, these hip hop guys are no different than these athletes. Like you hear a lot of stories about these athletes who get sort of, they end up in these toxic situations with women, or they get cheated on, or something happens, they get a chick pregnant, now they're paying all of this child support. Like these athletes are the same as these hip hop guys in that because they found themselves in a certain economic bracket so fast before they actually matured as humans, and they never had to actually develop certain basic fundamental skills like social skills, for example, never necessarily had to learn how to be masculine. They're now thrusted into a world where they can still get women despite the fact that they lack those skills. Guys who are not a part of those environments, if you lack those skills, you ain't getting no women. Okay, there's a price to pay. You're not going to get any women if you don't have adequate social skills, and if you do not have that drive necessarily to be able to kind of, you know, get things done, sort of embrace your manhood. You're going to be penalized for not having that. These athletes and these hip hop people, they're a cheat code because they can essentially buy their way out of it, like you said. So that's the ironic thing about what he's talking about is he is a representation of it's interesting because he's a representation of yes, he is. Like he literally is a representation of the large percentage of guys who are not successful women. I'll just put it that way. Yet he himself, because he's rich and famous, can bypass all of that. And so that's the danger that's inherent in it, is he can be a representation of that percentage without being an active member of it. It's weird. But I just, you know, and so yeah, I just think that, you know, it's, you don't, when you are thrusted into that world where you're a part of that economic level, you don't have to have the social skills. You can be you don't have to be the guy from 1865 or whatever year that was. You don't have to have the chiseled jaw, the oozing masculinity, the chest hair, all of that kind of stuff, swinging an axe. You're Paul Bunyan out here. Like, yeah, that guy is going to slay compared to the 70%, but he's still going to compete with hip hop guy who has the ability to be able to buy his way out of it. So we're still dealing with this sizable percentage of men who just don't have what it takes to step up, and women are noticing these things. And so and I'm not blaming women either. I'm you know, I lay everything at the feet of men. I think I've been pretty consistent with that. So I'm not blaming the women either. I'm just saying, hey, ladies, sit down and take 5 minutes to think about the fact that in about 20, 30 years, you're going to be living in a world where men just don't want to have sex with you. And there's something that you can do about that. There is something, it might not necessarily be your fault, but there is something that you can do about that. There is. And so if you want to be a part of the solution, be a part of the solution. Otherwise, you're going to be a part of the problem. You won't be a source of the problem, but you will be a part of it. Because these guys running around out here, these new dudes, and all of these other guys that you want to get with because they fit this profile that you seek so much, because they're out here getting all the opportunities with all the women, eventually they're going to sex themselves out. They're going to smash the sex out of them, and they're just not even going to have the appetite for it anymore. So whether that's something that you want to be a part of is a question that you can ask yourself. But take cues from Mr. Yachty here. You know, does that frighten you? Because I'm pretty sure some of y'all walking around out here saying that there's no dude who's just going to be like, oh, I just don't want to have sex anymore. Be careful, because there very well could be plenty of them.
I think guys and I'll just say this. I think people get burned out. And as I mentioned earlier, is that they get burned out with, you know, sex with nothing.
Mechanical sex, right?
Yeah.
Mechanical sex. But the point that I'm making is mechanical sex is rapidly replacing sex in the traditional sense. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like what we're getting to is a society in our Western culture in which the form of sex that is becoming more and more commonplace is mechanical and transactional.
I get what you're saying.
You know, guy who lives in a high-rise condo, you know, in Miami and Brickell, who makes, you know, $500K, $1 million a year, who goes out and can literally have sex with a different girl every night of the week. That guy is not getting fulfillment from that. He's doing it because he can. And eventually he's going to get burned out from it, because you always get burned out from mechanical acts. It's human nature. It just is what it is. So on either side, there's ways to kind of stem the tide on this. You know, guys need to embrace their masculinity and all of this. Everything that you said is dead on. And that stuff is even deeper than some of the more surface level things that I'm addressing. And, you know, women just need to, you know, evaluate how important it is to you that you hold on to this idea that every guy that you come in contact with has to fit that profile, because all of it factors into what I perceive to be a growing problem, because I do think that this is a problem.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing. And fellas, you can buy your way out of being lame. All right, air quotes, right? You can buy yourself out of that, such as Yachty. All right. Now, if you guys, me when Yachty first came out, it's completely, I was 100 and 30% against this. But of course, everything's out of my control, right? So he blows the hell up. Now, as I'm watching him get interviewed, this guy was an absolute dweeb. All right, absolute 100%. And his way of getting into the industry was completely, manipulative, contrived, and he weaseled his way into everybody knowing his name. Now, I say this to say that Yachty is still that guy. He just has more money. And you can buy your way into this club, but one thing you can't buy is masculinity.
Yeah.
You can't buy mentality. And so that's something that has to be worked on by you. And the women that you date, them being reflections of the universe, calls out things within you. Now, I'm not talking about their gaslighting for insecurities and things like that, but you should not care about the things that them calling you insecure or them calling you controlling or them saying whatever, they're little mind games. Egos get bruised somewhere, and they try to tear you down by tearing down your ego. So how is a woman a reflection of the universe by that? This is me personally. I genuinely feel that our jobs down here is to live out our goals and our passion, but to also not be so attached to this place called Earth. And when your ego is constantly getting bruised by a woman and she's constantly putting it under fire, that she's telling you to remove your ego from stuff. Part of growing up as a man and being evolved is to not give a damn. And if you understand what women are trying to attack in you, if you really understand those areas and you didn't have any ego in those areas, then she couldn't bruise it. She couldn't. So as much gaslighting she tries, as much blah, blah, blah she tries, this is all mentality. Instead of working on this, guys like Yachty can buy his way into an echelon of women that he couldn't get his hands on. So there's a genuine disconnect every time he deals with them. As soon as they come into his green room or hang out with him or whatever, they realize the guy is a lame. He is a little too effeminate for me. I don't like this. I still want a man. I don't want a guy getting his nails painted the same time as me, type of stuff. So this is why I'm saying that for fellas, work on building yourselves, work on improving your mentality, work on building your masculinity, a healthy form of it, and remove your ego from stuff. So to the point where if somebody does have something negative to say, or they do try to tear you down or whatever, they don't have a leg to stand on because you don't live on your ego or your persona of who you really are. You're living on principles and you're living on understanding of those principles. And some people may call that wisdom. All right. So one thing a woman can't do is tear your wisdom down, but she can damn sure tear down an inflated sense of yourself that's standing on nothing. So remove your egos from stuff. Your feelings won't get hurt then when she go do her city girl stuff. Oh snap, I got me a city girl on the low. I ain't even know it. She out here doing all this crazy stuff. If your ego is not invested in such foolery and it's invested in your goals, let her have it. So yeah, man. So Yachty, have at it. Continue your no sex. He ain't say no fap though. So he's still out there, I'm sure, just fapping away. I'm sorry, I'll leave Yachty alone. I'll leave Yachty alone.
He's just a new dude, you know, and yeah, I just like women know what are the intrinsic qualities that they seek in a guy. It's why these dudes never keep any of these women around. They'll get them pregnant, and all that kind of stuff, and they smash. But these chicks don't want to be with these guys. They don't. They don't want to be with any of these dudes like this, because they lack in every area other than the money and the lifestyle. I'm just saying that at a certain point, the money and the lifestyle is there's going to have to be a breaking point. You're going to have to decide, you know, is the money and lifestyle worth the fact that we are essentially creating a society full of incels? And that is crazy, but that's where we're headed to. That's where we're headed. And it ain't even going to be incels with men who hate women. It'll literally be men who just genuinely just don't have a desire to even do anything with, you know, we're just, the metaverse, all this kind of stuff is reinforcing it. But yeah, it's just going to be a world where men just don't even prioritize being with women in the first place. And that shit to me is scary.
Yep. I agree.
Scary as hell. And I do think this is a representation of that. Otherwise, keep on Lil Yachty making your weirdo music with your weirdo fans, all your little jits out there. You know, y'all keep, I hope, you know, we can have a whole nother video talking about this music stuff, man. Well, we ain't gonna get it all of that, man, but good Lord, this stuff is crazy out here.
Hey man, 2022, bro. Hey, 2023 on the way, bro.
Yeah. It's only gonna get worse, for real. It's weirdo stuff going on, but either way, on that note, man, we're gonna go ahead and end this week's video. That was some fun stuff. Fun topic. All of that stuff was kind of related. I feel like it's all correlated. So definitely check that out. If you watch this video on stream, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already part of the tribe. If you watch this video as a standalone video, please like the video, hit that subscribe button, comment, let us know where we went right, let us know where we went wrong. We do pay attention and respond, although we do not respond to the trolls. You can follow the Conscious Approach page on Instagram at Con Approach, CONAPPROACH. You can also follow me on Instagram at JVWins, JVWINS. Conscious Approach on TikTok is on the way, ironing out some kinks, trying to figure some things out. There's also the Conscious Approach page on Meta. It is still active while I am willing to continue to keep it going. So if you're watching this video on the Meta page, please share the video, comment on the video, like the video, and also follow the page because we are worth following. Once again, we are trying to get to 1K subscribers. That is the current goal. It has been an organic experience, but we look to up the ante and keep things going. So if you appreciate logical content, please follow the tribe, hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment on the video, because we certainly appreciate you supporting the channel.
Yes, sir. And the name is Dogon SS. You can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS or on YouTube at Dogon SS. And I think since they got handles, you can look for the handle at Dogon_SS. Weird that they just forced that on you like that. But yeah, as I say everybody, don't be too high, don't be too low. Keep it calm, keep it chill, and keep it player. Much like I was talking about in our last conversation. All right. If you don't have an ego, man, you are keeping it calm. You're not being too high. You're not being too low. So keep your ego in check. Fellas, work on yourselves. It's the most important thing you can do in your life. And if you build it, they will come. All right. So if you're one of the 70%, man, and I described you with your Mountain Dew earlier, I didn't mean any slight on you. But a mirror shows a harsh side of reality, man. I'm just trying to help out, bro. And once you work on yourself, man, remember, man, you can buy anything in this world, all right? But you can't buy mentality, all right? That's something that you got to work on yourself, man. So until the next part, guys, we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
For real. And ladies, y'all know the kind of men y'all want to go after. Stop going after these beta males and then you complain about the fact that they beta males after you get with them. How about you start going after the real guys? But perhaps a commentary for another pod. Who knows?
Yeah, we got to get into that later, man.
On that note, man, we're going to go ahead and close out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the Conscious Approach channel. We'll catch you on the next video. We see you later. We out. Peace.
Peace.